Okay, so I want you to do something for me. Close your eyes for a second and just, picture Batman.
Okay.
Really see him. You're seeing the gargoyles, the rain slicking off the armor, the whole thing.
The whole Gotham
Yeah.
aesthetic, yeah. Absolute competence. He's the man with the plan.
Exactly. He's the guy who could beat Superman with a piece of green rock and a grimace. He is the ultimate winner. But I want to start today by asking a really uncomfortable question.
Uh-oh.
What if winning isn't actually the goal?
That is a very provocative way to open this.
Stick with me here. What if the whole project, the cape, the cowl, the refusal to use guns, even the villains he fights, what if it's not actually designed to save Gotham? What if it's an elaborate subconscious machine built to make sure he loses?
And not just loses.
No, not just loses. Gets
Right.
absolutely catastrophically destroyed.
It sounds completely counterintuitive for a superhero, you know?
Man.
We expect the hero to win. But if you look at the psychological profile we're unpacking today, that destruction hypothesis starts to make a disturbing amount of sense.
We are diving deep today into a fascinating piece of analysis by Ryan Collison from Money Sex Nerd. It's called Batman and Bane, the Masochism Arc.
And this is not your typical who punches harder comic book debate.
Not at all. This is a look at the rogues gallery as an ecosystem. That's a key phrase from the piece.
It really is. Collison argues that Batman's villains aren't just random criminals. They're a system that he, on some level, cultivates to meet very specific psychological needs.
And the star of today's show is Bane.
Right. And the argument here isn't that Bane is just some monster trying to take over the city. The argument is that Bane is a provider.
A provider. That's a really loaded word for a guy famous for snapping spines.
It is, but the question is, what is he providing? And the answer, according to our source, is suffering. But not just random pain. It's a very specific, curated kind of suffering that Batman desperately craves.
Okay, let's unpack that, because masochism is a word that gets thrown around and people immediately think of,
Leather and chains, sure. And we will touch on the erotic dimensions of this later because you really can't ignore them. But this is primarily about psychological structure. Collison's whole thesis is that for Batman, being broken isn't a failure, it's a necessity.
It's the only time he feels real.
It's the only time he feels real.
To really get this, we have to go to the definitive text on this relationship, the Nightfall arc from the early 90s.
Oh, yeah. If you were reading comics in 1993, this was everything. This is where Bane breaks the bat.
And the context of how it happens is the most important part.
It's everything. Collison makes this brilliant point that Bane didn't just, jump Batman in an alley on a Tuesday night.
It wasn't random.
Not at all.
Well,
He engineered a gauntlet.
yeah, let's set that scene.
Yeah.
Bane blows the walls off Arkham Asylum. He doesn't just escape, he empties the building.
Yeah.
The Joker, Two-Face, Scarecrow, Zaz.
Every nightmare Batman has ever put away is suddenly loose at the exact same time.
And Bane's strategy is just pure attrition. He forces Batman to run them all down, one by one.
Think about the physical toll of that. This goes on for months in the comics. Batman is running a marathon at a sprint pace. He's not sleeping, he's barely eating.
And he's just accumulating injuries, right?
Yeah.
Burns, cuts, fractures.
Yeah.
He never stops to heal.
He is redlining the engine. And the most chilling part, which the article points out, is that Bane just watches. He sits back and observes the deterioration.
He waits until Batman is literally running on fumes, delirious from exhaustion.
And that's when he steps in, when Batman can barely stand.
Precisely. And this is the core of what Collison calls the masochist's bargain.
Yeah.
You have to ask, why wait?
Tactically, it makes no sense. He could have crushed him earlier.
Right. So why?
Because for the breaking to matter to Batman, it has to be earned.
Earned. That's the key word. Unpack that for us.
Okay, think of it this way. If Batman is patrolling one night, slips on a wet gargoyle, falls and breaks his leg. What is that?
That's embarrassing. It's a mistake.
Exactly. It's incompetence.
Right.
And Bruce Wayne hates incompetence. He cannot accept a defeat that comes from an error. But if he falls after giving absolutely everything he has, physically, mentally, emotionally,
If the tank is completely empty.
then the defeat is permissible.
So it's like he needs permission to stop.
That is exactly it. Collison argues he cannot rest on his own. The mission is a compulsion. He can't take a vacation. He can't admit he's tired. The only way he is allowed to stop being Batman is if he is physically incapacitated.
That is so dark. But it makes a twisted kind of sense. And Bane seems to understand this on an intuitive level.
He does. He knows he can't just beat Batman. He has to break the real Batman, the one at his absolute limit. He needs to strip away the gadgets, the reputation, and reduce him to just a man gasping for air.
So he can grant him the release of total defeat.
Exactly.
It recontextualizes the whole hero thing. And it makes me wonder why a billionaire genius chooses this specific method. I mean, Bruce Wayne has infinite resources.
He could fight crime with drones.
An army of robots. Fun social programs. Why put on Kevlar and let people punch you in the ribs every single night?
That is the billion-dollar question, isn't it? Why does the solution to crime have to involve getting hit in the face? The source ties this directly to something called an avoidant attachment structure.
Okay, psych speak. Break that down. What does that mean for a guy like Bruce?
So, avoidant attachment usually comes from early childhood trauma, like, say, watching your parents get murdered in front of you.
Right.
You learn a very hard lesson very fast. Having emotional needs leads to abandonment. If you love people, you lose them.
So the defense mechanism is to just stop needing people.
You shut down the supply line. You suppress your inner life. You become hyper-competent, hyper-independent, invulnerable. You tell yourself, I don't need comfort. I don't need love. I am a fortress.
Which is Batman to a T.
Yeah.
I work alone. He pushes everyone away. He becomes a statue.
He becomes a symbol. But here's the catch, and this is where the psychology gets really interesting. Human needs don't just disappear when you ignore them.
They get buried.
And buried needs create pressure. Imagine a boiler where you've welded the safety valve shut. The pressure just builds and builds and builds.
And eventually something has to give.
Exactly. And Collison uses this brilliant metaphor of physical pain as the pressure valve. Because Bruce has suppressed his emotions so thoroughly, he lives in a state of dissociation.
Numbness, basically.
Yeah.
Detached from everything.
Yes, he's walled off the grief, the fear, the loneliness. He is functionally dead inside because that's how he survives. But the source argues that this numbness feels awful. It feels like non-existence.
So, pain is proof of life.
Yes, think about it. The sensation of a broken rib, the freezing cold, the burn in your muscles, those feelings are undeniable.
You can't dissociate from a shattered spine.
You can't. When you're in that much agony, you are forced to be present in your body.
Wow. So the source is saying Batman needs to get hurt because getting hurt is the only time the numbness breaks.
It's incredibly tragic. He's not addicted to the violence for justice's sake. He's addicted to the feeling of reality the violence gives him. He hurts so he can feel.
Which brings us back to the ecosystem idea. Different villains meet different needs.
Right. The Joker is the mirror, showing him the chaos inside. The Riddler is intellectual recognition.
But Bane provides something unique. The source calls it competent suffering.
I love that phrase, competent suffering. Think about the average thug Batman fights.
If it's a performance.
It's just exercise, right? He knows he's going to win. They can't actually hurt him.
But Bane is the exception.
Bane is strong enough, smart enough, strategic enough to actually overwhelm his defenses. He is the only one who can deliver the level of pain Batman actually requires.
And that leads to this really interesting intimacy angle this source brings up. There's a weird tenderness to the Nightfall story.
It's a fascinating dynamic. Collison calls it a stalker-lover dynamic.
A stalker-lover dynamic.
I know. But think about it. Bane watches Batman from the rooftops. He learns his routines, how he thinks, where the armor is weak. For someone as totally isolated as Batman, being seen that completely is a profound form of intimacy.
It's like, finally, someone gets it.
Yeah.
Someone takes me seriously enough to actually dismantle me piece by piece.
Exactly. Bane sees through the symbol to the exhausted, traumatized man inside. And the source argues that, on some level, Batman wants to be seen like that.
Which brings us to a term the source uses that I think we really need to define, because it sounds intense.
It does.
Therapeutic masochism.
Right. And again, just to be clear for everyone listening, in a clinical context, especially for trauma survivors, this isn't necessarily about enjoying pain. It's about regulation. It's a way to hack your way back into your body.
Hacking back into the body. I like that.
When you're dissociated, you're floating. Pain grounds you. It pulls you out of your head and into immediate physical reality.
So that moment, the famous comic panel where Bane breaks his back over his knee, Collison describes it as agony, obviously, but also as the most real Batman has felt in decades.
It forces him to be fully present. In that moment, there's no mission, there's no strategy, there's just raw sensation.
The war is over. He lost.
Yeah.
And he can finally stop fighting.
Yes. He's no longer a symbol. He's just a broken man on the floor. And that's a relief.
But then the comic kick logic kicks in. He gets better, he heals, gets a robot spine, whatever. He comes back.
He does. And Collison calls this the resurrection loop. He heals, he retrains, he rebuilds. But does he learn to avoid the pain?
No.
No. He inevitably creates the conditions for it to happen all over again. The recovery isn't about getting better in a mental health sense.
It's about restoring the capacity to endure pain again.
Exactly. He gets healed so that he can be broken again. Collison says, the breaking isn't the end, the breaking is the point.
Because the breaking is the only time he's allowed to rest. It twists the whole hero narrative inside out. He's not fighting to win, he's fighting to earn his own collapse.
It's a haunting way to look at it. And this cycle leads us to the parallels between Batman and Bane as addicts.
Yeah, let's talk about that. Bane has Venom, the green supersteroid. That's a literal drug.
Bane is a slave to Venom. It gives him power, but it controls him. But Collison argues Batman is also a slave. He's a slave to the mission.
Psychological venom.
Exactly. The mission is his trauma response. It gives him superhuman focus, lets him do the impossible, but it destroys his life. It ruins his relationships. It wrecks his body.
They're both addicts.
They've both traded their humanity for power. When they fight, it's one addict recognizing another. They're looking in a mirror.
Okay, so we have to go there.
Yeah.
We teased it at the beginning.
Yeah.
The source explicitly brings up the sexual dimension of this relationship. And before anyone rolls their eyes, Collison is very clear. This isn't just fan fiction. This is built into the text.
And it's crucial to understand this isn't about sex acts. It's about erotic weight, power dynamics, dominance, submission, the penetration defenses. Those things carry an erotic charge.
The source uses the word consummation to describe the backbreaking, which is a bold choice of words.
It is bold, but look at the language of the encounter. The prolonged pursuit, the physical dominance, the total surrender of one body to another.
Bane forces Batman to submit. And in that submission, there was a release.
The release of not having to be strong anymore. Bane gives Batman permission to be weak, permission to fail. In a life defined by rigid, obsessive control, that forced loss of control is the ultimate release.
So Bane is the only one who can give Batman what he actually needs.
Which is total defeat. And that's why Bane stays in the ecosystem. He broke the bet. He won. He could have left.
But he stays because he's hooked too.
He needs that connection. He needs a worthy opponent to make his own strength meaningful. They define each other.
So if we step back and look at this whole thing, what does it actually mean for us, the audience? We think of him as the guy who fixes things.
Well, the source argues we need to stop looking at Batman's suffering as just a side effect of the job. You know, oh, poor Bruce, he sacrifices so much. Collison suggests it's not a bug, it's a feature.
The Masochism's the operating system.
Precisely. It's the mechanism he uses to manage the impossible pressure of being invulnerable. If he didn't have this outlet, he'd probably snap mentally long before he snapped physically.
So he just keeps running the cycle. Build up, find an enemy, get destroyed, feel real for a minute, and then start over.
And he's an expert at it. He engineers his own destruction perfectly every single time.
Which brings us back to that first question. Is he even trying to win?
I think the answer from this analysis is that winning for Batman looks very different than it does for us. Winning isn't saving the city and going home for dinner. Winning is surviving the crash so you can drive the car into the wall again tomorrow.
It really changes how you see the bat signal, doesn't it? It's not just a call for help from the city. It's a call for help from him. He's looking for the next thing that can hurt him.
And he will always find it, because he needs to find it. As the source says, you can't stop a masochist from seeking pain, but you can understand why they need it.
A fascinating if.
Yeah.
Yeah, slightly terrifying way to look at a childhood hero.
Yeah.
It turns the whole power fantasy inside out.
It suggests the invulnerability we admire is actually a prison. And the violence is the only window out. It forces us to ask if we're cheering for a hero or if we're just enabling a tragedy.
Well, that is definitely something to think about. We're going to wrap it up there. A huge thanks to Ryan Collison and Money Sex Nerd for the source material on this one. It really flips the script on the Caped Crusader.
A very compelling and challenging read.
And to you listening, I want to leave you with one final thought to mull over. We always ask if Batman is actually saving Gotham. But based on what we talked about today, is Batman really saving the city, or is he just spending billions of dollars to build a stage for his own necessary destruction? Thanks for diving in with us.
See you next time.